Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. So this video is about key parts in Romans. The parts that overkill in a very obvious way. That faith without works is dead. So what a lot of people get from Romans, right? Paul's letters, Romans, is that they think that faith is magically all you need, which is not the case. By the time you get to Romans 2 with me, right? The key parts in Romans chapter 2, you're going to be sure that I'm right. So Romans 1 verse 18. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of people who suppress the truth by their wickedness. So who is the wrath of God aimed at? People who are wicked, who are suppressing the truth by their wickedness. Their actions have caused the wrath of God to come upon them. Since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. So that people are without excuse for their wickedness. The more you have faith, right, the more you know, the more you have no excuse for being wicked. It's that simple. In a nutshell, the Bible is about doing what is right in time so you can go to heaven. And if you do what is wrong, or you decide to do what is right when it's too late, you go to hell. That's the Bible in a nutshell. It's there in Isaiah 28:17, right? Righteousness and justice, the measuring line and plume line. It's there in Isaiah 5, I believe it is, Psalm 9, where the Lord is known and exalted by his righteous acts, his acts of justice. Is there in Matthew 5, verse 20, your righteousness must surpass the Pharisees. Matthew 5, verses 47, 48, I believe it is, where it says that you should be perfect because God is perfect. For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him. But their thinking became futile, and their hearts were darkened. So their thinking became futile, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like a mortal human being and birds and animals and reptiles. Therefore God gave them over in their sinful desires, gave them over in the sinful desires of their hearts to sexual impurity for the degrading of their bodies with one another. They exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped and served created things rather than the Creator who is forever praised. Amen. It's like demons in popular culture. How are they depicted? They're depicted as being made ugly. But I caution you, the Prince of Darkness is said to be a true gentleman. And we see it embodied most in colonialism and neocolonialism and the modern churches, where they try to look all holy and pure while they work with various groups to pervert the course of justice, to sabotage people behind the scenes. We see when people try to rise for what is right, whether they're, a Muslim or Christian, whether they're this or that, more often than not, it starts with someone from a poor area, like Malcolm X. And from my understanding, Martin Luther King, his family wasn't that rich. They start off from a poor area. Nelson Mandela, from a poor area. They don't start off as rich. So it's not as simple as, well, that's why they're rich and that's why they're poor. That's why the prosperity gospel is false, right? That, financial prosperity is not a sign of being blessed by God. We also see that in this first chapter, it makes it clear that being an LGBT person is not consistent with the works of God. But again, I caution you to understand that in Romans as well, it says, that the vast majority of people are doing the wrong thing. So LGBT people aren't the only people who are comfortable in their ways who don't want to be told they're doing the wrong thing. It's the whole world. You're all cheating me out of my right to lead. And even if I was a celebrity, we'd expect the vast, vast majority of people to not follow me because they're dumb. Okay, so all the people who want to do the wrong thing, metalheads, thugs with no higher cause, corporate oppressors, whoever it is, they would still be doing the wrong thing in large groups, even if I was famous, because people are stupid. Going back to the verse I talked about, going back to verse 21. For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him. But their thinking became futile, and they're foolish. The word being used is foolish. Their foolish hearts were darkened. Okay, so people are dumb. Again, it says, because of this, God gave them over to shameful lusts, right? Shameful. Even their women exchanged natural sexual relations for unnatural ones. And again, it's not just lesbians it's talking about dating based on money. Does money grow on trees? No. It is not natural to date based on money. It is not the natural direction of a true woman to have any financial imperative whatsoever. A true woman puts God first. She doesn't say, well, how am I going to feed myself or clothe myself? She says, how am I going to do God's work, whether it causes me to starve to death or be killed or whatever. So they never grew up. They weren't raised right. They weren't raised to be perfected by God when they have a financial imperative. It is unnatural to have immature, disgusting sex, etc. It says, even their women exchange natural relations for unnatural ones. But what does it say before that? It says, because of this, God gave them over to shameful lust. All lust is shameful. Why isn't it derived? Why isn't your passion for a woman, for example, derived from true love? Why is it derived from lust, like a little perverted teenager with a porn magazine or something? It's pathetic. In the same way, the men also abandoned natural relations with women and were inflamed with lust for one another. Men committed shameful acts with other men and received themselves the due penalty for their error. Furthermore, just as they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, so God gave them over to a depraved mind. The word being used is depraved, so that they do what ought not to be done. Now again, it is not just talking about LGBT people. It is talking about everybody who has sex but me, and it's talking about everybody who cheats me out of my right to lead, whether they have sex or not, when it comes to having a foolish heart and a depraved mind. It is depraved. It is despicable. It is sick and disgusting to cheat me out of my right to lead. They have become filled with every kind of wickedness, evil, greed, and depravity. Notice the word greed is put there right by the word depravity. Greed and depravity. It is depraved. To say, I don't want to date Jesus because he's not rich, that is sickening. That is depraved. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, and malice. They are gossips, slanderers, God-haters, insolent, arrogant, and boastful, right? It says in Paul's letters in 1 Corinthians, it says, if you're going to boast, boast in the Lord. It's not talking about me boasting in my top martial arts challenge that God has allowed me to triumph with because I've served God, because I've come from a long line of people who scramble to be righteous. It's talking about arrogant, money boasting, scientists boasting, sports guys, celebrities, people who have little reason to boast, even in the psychological construct boasting. It's talking about those types of boasters. They invent ways of doing evil. Ways to cheat me out of my right to lead. Cheat me out of the submission of attractive women to me, so I can pick one to be my wife. They disobey their parents. They have no understanding, no fidelity, no love, no mercy. What is he talking about here? He's talking about characteristics in their true form. That's why I'm explaining and refining what he's saying, so you understand what it is saying and what it isn't. Notice, thousands of videos later, they still have no viable counter-argument. Just the other day, some female had to remove my comment, or maybe it was the government that did it. Her channel was Faith Exposed because I exposed the weakness of her argument to a T. To a T. Going back to characteristics. Whoever did it showed the characteristics of cowardice. Whoever thinks it should be done is a coward and a fool and a liar. Although they know God's righteous decree that those who do such things deserve death, they not only continue to do these very things, but also approve of those who practice them. And think about a family, right? 5 generations. Think about somebody who's a great-great-grandpa. He also approves of the guy who's a great-grandpa, of the guy who's a grandpa, of the guy who's a father, and of the person who is maybe a newborn child or something. They approve of them following their despicable path. So you know them by their works. And you have to define the characteristics correctly. Not as a white supremacist, Jewish supremacist, black supremacist, or any racial supremacist. Not as a mulatto supremacist. Not as a LGBT supremacist. Not as a greedy person. Not as a fanatic American quote-unquote patriot. You have to describe it correctly in reality. Not based on your mere sense of propriety, your mere human rules, customs, traditions, racial history, or whatever, but in reality. So again, the problem includes them being filled with every kind of wickedness, evil, greed, and depravity, including changing my voice to try to make it sound corny. Oh yeah, I'm sure they don't know I'm right because you made it so I sound weird, like the vast majority of people sound. Because of what you've done. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, and malice. They are gossips, slanderers, God-haters, insolent, arrogant, and boastful. They invent ways of doing evil. They disobey their parents. They have no understanding, no fidelity, no love, no mercy, no integrity. No love in their hearts. What they're doing is not love. It is being a coward, scrambling to survive, full of lust and petty affection, but not true love that brings a true and worthy and valid affection.